All right. Hey, good evening. Welcome to Straight Up on 107.1 FM. Spread the word. We'll be right back.
What is the difference between the ordinary thief and a political thief? Number one, the ordinary thief steals your money, your bag, your watch, and your jewelry, isn't it? But the political thief steals your future, your career, your education, your health, and your business. Number two, the hilarious part is that the ordinary thief will choose whom to rob. But you are the one who choose the political thief to rob you. Because we choose them. We vote them. We blindly say we are not blind. Who is deceiving who? The ridiculous part of the whole issue is that we will fight to defend and protect our belongings from the ordinary thief. Is it not? But we fight each other to defend and protect the political thief. Is that not what we do? Thugs will be fighting themselves to protect those that are stealing our career, stealing our joy, stealing our health, stealing our success. What a shame. What a travesty. It calls for us to think and think deep. The stage we are in as a country is not a stage where you become an onlooker. You have become an onlooker for too long. You must get ready to put your hands to the plow and be part of the process. It's not just about PVC, carry PVC. You must be in the kitchen where it is being determined. You must be there where the decisions are being made. If we are there in our numbers, they cannot outnumber us. But you leave it aloof. Oh, it's too dirty. It's a dirty game. And then the dirty guy is getting to the game of play. And you are there not showing up. And when they begin to make the decisions, you will know whether it's a dirty game or not. The result is always dirty on yours. Dirty on your health. Dirty on your business. Dirty on your success and your career. I hope that is stirring up something in you.
Hello, this is attorney Shellen Washington, owner and founder of the Washington Law Firm located at 455 Utica Avenue in Brooklyn, New York. We're specialized in medical malpractice, personal injuries, matrimonial law, and landlord and tenant. If you're in need of legal representation, please give us a call today. The number to call is 718-877-3100. Consultation is free at no cost to you. So call us today to see if we can be of any assistance to your legal needs. Again, the phone number to call us is 718-877-3100.
If you are looking to have your statutory declaration, affidavit of income, identity, damage or lost passport, lost license, tenancy agreement, agreement of settlement, power of attorney, last will and testament, and certification of documents, then you need to visit the Alistair Collins firm, located at the Killian Mall, 162 Lamaha Street in Georgetown, between Camp and Waterloo Street. Alistair Collins is a commissioner of oaths and a justice of the peace. Make certain you visit him or call for more information at 649-6410 or 685-6448 or 503-1451. And there's adequate parking available. Go down to the Alistair Collins firm and have all of your legal issues settled and brought to the fore. Alistair Collins firm. Contact them at Alistair Collins firm,
All right. Hey, good evening. My name is Mark Benchap, and welcome to Straight Up on 107.1 FM. It's a new year, old tricks, mind you, new year, old tricks with these political vagabonds. All right. I know you didn't expect for me to start off this show with hello, how are you? How's the new year? Look, let's get straight into the chase, right? It's going to be a bumpy road, politically speaking, that is, because these people, and it is difficult for a leopard to change its stripes, right? It just wouldn't do it. So we are in 2022 now. Don't expect the installed PPP regime to change its stripes. It's just not going to happen. Let me, to begin with, say that I'm happy to be here this evening with you all. I almost did not, because you can tell from the sound of my voice, I'm a little under the weather. Nevertheless, I'm happy to be here. So please do forgive me. Later, maybe in a few minutes' time, we will be joined by Sharma Solomon and a young man, Onyx Duncan. We want to find out what's happening and what are some of their opinions as it pertains to Guyana in 2022. All right, let me just have you guys see that yes, I'm on, I'm alive, I'm well, even though I'm a little under the weather. Uh, Please do forgive me. You know, I am not as bumpy as I should be, maybe because what is it, 2022? We're stepping up there in terms of age, right? We are strategic fighters. We are not the wild fighters. We are very strategic. So if you put the gloves on us, we know how to dance around, but we are going to get you. Naughty Mark. All right. So what is it that we can talk about? The reason why I put that guy up there, Robeson Ben, right? Robeson Ben, because we're getting all these suspicious fires. Just a couple, maybe a day or so ago, yesterday, there's a fire at a section of the Georgetown Public Hospital. And even before the flames finished, concluded, done with, Robeson Ben is back with his old tricks again in 2022. It's already suspicious. So all the fires are suspicious. All the fires are, according to this Looney Tune, political Looney Tune, all the fires are suspicious without the start of any investigations. And that's dangerous again. And these people in the PPP, they're not concerned how dangerous they sound. Take, for example, before we get back to the fire, right? Take, for example, what transpired in Parliament just the other day with the mace. And I want to talk not long on the mace story, but before I get back to the mace story, let me just acknowledge all of you and thank you so much for those who are wishing and have wished me, and by extension, family, and by extension, all of us at 107.1 FM as well, including your favorite individual who is sharply dressed. He's at work, our technical guy, Lemon, uh, back on the job, doing his thing. So I must say that he has pledged to be a good worker this year, just like all the other workers. Well, we don't call them workers. We say we are a team at 107.1 FM radio station. You know, we want to get bigger and better, and we will. And so a prosperous 2022 to all of you as well, your family, your business, whatever it is that you do. Thank you so much for supporting us over the past year, 2021, those of you who did. And I know when I say support, it doesn't mean that you got to throw a dollar at us and then I acknowledge you guys. No, the fact that you are on means a lot to us right here on 107.1 FM. The fact that you guys take time out to be with us is sufficient. The fact that you guys share the link is sufficient. And that is how we deal here at 107.1 FM. And so we are a family. We work together. We are a team. All right. So thank you all so much. Now let me get back to this, to what I was talking about with the mace in Parliament. I just want you guys to know, those of you who have just joined, you will be seeing some photographs covering up my face because I really don't feel comfortable speaking, knowing that I'm not in the best. I wouldn't want to say in the best of health, but I'm a little under the weather. The change of weather, the change of everything. So please do forgive me this evening. Please do. So Gail Teixeira in Parliament just the other day, when the mace was actually touched, so to speak, and they're blaming members of the opposition, Annette Ferguson and all these different folks in the opposition. Gail Teixeira is saying it's a terrorist act. It's an act of terrorism. Where do these people come from? An act of terrorism? Chetty Jagan did the same when he was opposition leader. Was it an act of terrorism then? And at that time, Gail Teixeira was very close to Chetty. Very close to Chetty. She was, mind you, his secretary, I believe. And so Chetty Jagan, I'm not saying that we're playing comparison politics, but what's the reason for Gail Teixeira wanting to describe these folks or the acts as terrorism? I don't know. But Nigel, you said it best. We cannot sit and allow those individuals to describe us. And if those MPs in the coalition want to sit and allow people like Gail Teixeira of all person, Gail Teixeira, to describe people or acts as terrorism, I don't know, something is definitely wrong with those people. And they're not going to get any better for 2022. They're just not going to get any better. Back to this mace. I'm not sure how accurate this is, but there's a video that is circulating calling Annette Ferguson, the member of parliament, a thief and all these different things. And they have some lagu bagus and some trench crappos in the coalition. Forgive me to start off like this for New Year, a brand new year. I had intention to change, but I'm right back into the old tricks of 2021. Good old tricks of 2021. Good trouble for 2022, right? And somebody in those opposition chat group just talk all the time, burn up their energy and talk. Somebody's saying that I am circulating a video calling Annette Ferguson a mace thief. Why would I do that? I have a video that's circulating, and whatever I circulate, I put my name to it. And there's a video that I posted on my page that basically said that the reincarnation of Chetty Jagan. So we can't blame the opposition MPs, if it's Annette Ferguson or whomever, of doing something so bad, when in fact the PPP should know that Chetty Jagan, Ripudaman Prasad, and all those people behave worse in Parliament. So that behavior by members of the opposition was just soft pop. It was just a touch up, something small. But if Gail Teixeira wants to describe those folks as whatever she described them as, I wonder what she would say about this here. Let's take her back to this. Hooliganism. That is what you call acts of terrorism. That is what you call. Look at those sort of things. And oftentimes we gotta they're not easy. They're not easy at all. And so for 2022, we've got to be very strategic. Very strategic. If we are to remove the PPP, the installed PPP regime from office, we've got to be strategic. The opposition, PNC, and the coalition can't just use their energy every day targeting members of the coalition, targeting supporters of the coalition, targeting members of the PNC, targeting. It's this internal fighting that is happening, that is sucking up the blood and the energy of everyone within. And it's not going to get anywhere. It's just not going to get anywhere. In fact, what it's doing, it's going to drive people away from the coalition. It's going to drive people away from the PNCR. And who you think is going to benefit from that? Who you think? You know, I want those MPs and those PNC people to know, even though I'm not a PNC member, I'm not your enemy. So don't go in your chat groups and all these things and making people who stood up and put their lives on the line so that there was a change of government in 2015 and all these things. And many of you who are cussing now benefited from that. I don't know. You guys got to wake up. Y'all got to wake up. There is this talk now about umbrella. I'm James Bond and umbrella. I tell you guys this, I'm not holding any umbrella for nobody, other than maybe a female, other than maybe an old lady or whatever. But I don't think that I'll be seen holding an umbrella like that, walking and holding an umbrella like that. But again, I don't want to waste my energy on umbrella. I'm James Bond hold umbrella and took some businessman, whatever his name is, to Melanie. And then 2-3 days, that's all the talk is going to be about umbrella. And James Bond is this and James Bond and umbrella. This is what I want to say for those who are talking about umbrella and those who are talking about taking Mohammed's son, whatever his name is, into Melanie. This is what I want to say to those senior ones in the PNC and those MPs who probably don't have much to do, right? I want to see those MPs or those individuals who are criticizing James Bond about umbrella. I mean, people have a right to talk or say whatever, but I don't think that MPs and the political leaders in the PNC or the coalition should waste their time and talk about umbrella and who has umbrella over who. And it's counterproductive. Y'all know what James is about. James has shown you guys his cards. James is a businessman. James is making money. James wants to be friends with everybody. That's his position. So why spend hours, days talking about umbrella? Here's what I want the MPs to do. This is what I want the MPs to do. I want the MPs to go into communities like Melanie. If y'all don't want anybody to go in y'all communities, y'all go in y'all own communities. Y'all go into y'all support base. Donate some of your money. You make $250,000 a month. Many of you love to say y'all have other jobs too, you know. Well, if you have other jobs too, you could donate $250,000, 1 month of your salary for the year. 32 MPs, I believe, or 31. Some of them could sit down and say, for this month, 2 of them are going to donate their salaries for Linden to build a community center, build a playground. The next month, 2 more. Borbis, build something at Alnis, build something at Philippi, build something at Letterkenny or Liverpool, Lancaster, Kildona, build something, do something. Don't sit and just, all you get is criticisms. Do something. You don't have to have much to do. And I'm speaking from experience. Take a page out of what we were doing and what we continue to do through the Benchmark Foundation. Take a page from that. But hours and hours and who umbrella and who this. And James, man, know what he's doing. He's enjoying himself. Let's welcome these 2 gentlemen. Good evening to you, Mr. Sharma Solomon and Mr. Onyx Duncan. Good evening to you both.
Evening, Mark. Evening, Sharma.
Bless good evening, Onyx. Bless good evening, Mark.
Good evening to you, Sharma.
Yeah. Let me apologize to you guys for this because I'm a little under the weather. Onyx, I noticed that you made a post today and you said that, in other words, in essence, you're saying that those who are attacking Bond for being the umbrella boy and for being the umbrella boy is that people are quick to jump and criticize and throw their own people under the bus. I experience this all the time. Sharma Solomon has experienced that. And you're now young into this. You will experience it, or maybe you have. But people tend to forget the big sacrifices made. And I don't know where some of these folks are popping out of now. Quick to criticize, quick to throw people under the bus. And it's just going to drive people away from the PNC and from the coalition. You mentioned that was the same James Bond that went out, took quite a heck of a lot of pellet bullets. For many who are criticizing right now, who would dare not go out and even protest or even take 1 pellet bullet. Now, I have said that the MPs need to go in Melanie, they need to go all over and do their work if they don't want people like that Mohammed's son or whatever his name is to go into their community, so to speak, right? What is your take on this whole waste of time and energy about umbrella? What should the MPs be doing or politicians? Onyx.
Mark, what James is doing is a good thing. James has come from, like I said in my post, protesting for us. I was little when that happened, and I could remember that. I don't know the bigger folks if they can't, but I had to make my point. James is a businessman, like you said, and James is doing what needs to be done that the politicians are not doing, that the government is not doing, and it's something that is of substance, and we need to look at it in a different way. So if he chooses to hold the umbrella for his friend or hold the umbrella for somebody while walking, it's no big deal. It's no big deal. I don't see it as a big deal. And if this is the path we are heading down, it's terrible. It's very terrible.
Yeah, thank you so much. We have lots of other things to talk about, but I want the MPs to donate some of their salaries. Some of them might suck their teeth and say, man, Sharp, donate $250,000 a month And plus, they love to say they get a second job and all these things. Donate, go into these very communities.
That's correct.
Donate stuff. Don't just walk up in the market and spend $100 to buy some right plantain and 2 cabbage and take photographs and say that you're grounding with the people and it's grassroots politics. That is not grassroots politics.
That's correct.
Mr. Sharma Solomon, former chairman of Region Number 10. Good evening, sir. Happy New Year to you. And, I wish you and your family and every single thing, your beautiful mom as well, and your beautiful daughters and your wife, a prosperous 2022. Welcome to the show for this year, sir.
Same to you and family, Mark, and thank you for having me on. Again, thanks, Onyx, to you and family. A blessed and prosperous 2022. I see this as a non-issue, Mark. A non-issue in that before anything else, James Bond is a comrade. He's a brother. Assalamu alaikum to James Bond and assalamu alaikum to Brother Muhammad. I see this as charity. In Islam, that's what we do. We give charity. So if we miss that, which is charity, it means we've missed the objective of what the exercise was. And we instead focus on what is most irrelevant. So I would take it in that context, that for those who are criticizing, I would encourage them that as part of our deen, as part of our obligation to our fellow man, is to give charity. It's part of our design. It is part of who we are. And that's all I will say on that matter, and would encourage others to do such. Only to say that as we, however, move forward as a nation, that we should understand that the big objective is that we should be each other's keeper. So I would encourage that we all take a page out of that and see where we can play our part and see where we can lend our support to those communities that are in need. If there is any anger, if there is any resentment of what we saw based on someone giving charity, then we need to articulate that in the wider context of where we believe Guyana should be. Then we should take that as a different argument. But on the face of what occurred, it is charity. End of story.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much, Sharma Solomon. Misguided politics, wasting of energy in things that wouldn't get us anywhere. And you are correct, Mr. Solomon, that charity begins at home. If the people of Melanie or the people of Sapphire, wherever, if they need help, then those who are representing them ought to be the first on the ground to make that sacrifice, make sacrifices to help your constituency, help your support base. You don't wait until someone comes from outside to offer help. And then start the criticism.
Mark, like he's gone.
Yeah, well, as he's gone, I think I could still say on his behalf. I think what is important on this particular matter, however, is that we're so easy to forget, and I think you made the point, Onyx, about James receiving, and I know this date quite well, the 6th of December, 2011.
I think he was there.
Yeah, we were right there. We were heading straight into the conflict. We actually saw when him and Bess and all of the others congregated at Congress Place. And we would have our own situation a couple months to follow. So I think many times we easily forget the people who make sacrifices and just what they would have encouraged on their own behalf and not necessarily deserve the sort of criticisms we give sometimes. I mean, optics goes a long way. And if that is all we can draw from the optics of what occurred, then it means we're very limited in how our vision and scope goes. So I would say that, as I mentioned earlier, the issue of charity, and Mark was rightfully saying, charity begins at home. We have a lot of work to be done, a lot of communities who are suffering, and much more should be given to ensure that we alleviate the sufferings of those communities.
Absolutely. If you're now joining us, a happy new year to all of you. And our guest this evening, I just say this though, but And I spoke with James earlier, and I told James that for the optic, that doesn't look good at all. I am not holding any umbrella for anybody, unless it's my kids or loved ones and these sort of things. I may hold the umbrella for Sharma Solomon or Onyx, but me holding the umbrella for any and anybody just like that. So, you know what I mean? And I told James that the optics, it doesn't look good, right? And I understand what the people, don't get me wrong, people, that I'm saying is justified. Don't get me wrong, but we're missing the bigger picture in all of this. The bigger picture is those who are criticizing, especially the MPs, especially those big boys and girls in the PNC, go out there in Melanie and Sophia, go out in those communities and do things. Go out and get done. Mr. Onyx, go ahead. You're shaking your head.
Yeah, I think, like you said, there's a bigger picture. A lot of people forget that we, well, as business persons, because James is a businessman now. As business person, you shouldn't pick and choose who you're friends with or pick and choose who you dwell with, because that can be bad for business. And
No,
and I don't think
also
James,
as a businessman, you're a young man. You've got to be careful. Show me your friends, and I'll tell you who you are. So
that
be
is
careful,
correct.
young man. You're getting into the
That is
politics. You still got to
That
be
is correct.
careful.
So,
But
and I was about to say,
James is just, we know James now. James,
yeah,
look, to me, he has given up in politics. He's making
correct.
money. He's doing hustling. He didn't care whose hand he shake. He didn't care who he going take into the community and so forth. And the people might be objecting to that, and maybe rightly so. But what I'm saying, in the process of objecting, also those who are representing the community, their support base are in those communities. Why is it that they can't do? Why is it that they can't pull up and go right into Melanie, right into other communities and do? They don't.
And you're right about that.
Don't. But continue, young man.
You're right. They're gonna wait until it's elections, and then that's when they start, going into these communities and say, oh, they're meeting with the people, they're meeting with these people, they're meeting with that, and that's how it is. Every election is the same thing.
Same thing. Coming from a young man, Onyx. Mr. Solomon, how is the new year? How is politics? How do you see this unity that they're talking about in your party, the People's National Congress Reform? Are you guys getting there?
Well, Mark, the new year, God is great, 2022. I always approach every year, and I know people say it's just a stroke of time, and but as a symbolic interactionist, people who believe in symbolism, it means a lot. It's a new year, it's a new time. We must remember that we started this millennium with a bug. We're into the third decade of this millennium, 2 years into it with a virus, a deadly pandemic. But I always remain optimistic to say that better will come. In the vein of being optimistic too, I want to say that unity is always the foundation on which we move forward. And last program I was on, Mark, I did make this point that our campaign, and I would not be alien again to say that we weren't part of the campaign. And we had put out a 6 months program, a 180 days initiative to say, once we had gotten into the position of management of the People's National Congress, unity was the underlying factor. And I've always made this point that notwithstanding the challenges we see faced by the People's Progressive Party, our biggest challenge remains a disunited PNC, a disunited coalition, a disunited Guyana. So for us to be able to overcome that, in terms of defeating the People's Progressive Party and to ensure we confront those challenges, we must look at the challenges within. And the biggest challenge we have, and we see it, is the issue of unity. I believe what becomes the issue, however, is that on the other platforms that the campaign took, this is a quite honest position. There was more difference on consolidation of power. And I believe you see that issue playing itself now as we move forward, because there is still that issue to consolidate power. And there was no room or scope on that very underlying issue of unity. And now we're seeing a very difficulty in getting over that. Now, Mark, you ask about unity. What we see in the People's National Congress, and any second year political science student will tell you this, is a matter you call the triumvirate. The triumvirate is really, how do you see the issue of three sharing the power of one? And people might say, but why is the theoretical analyzing of these matters relevant now? Because history shapes for us our future. And for those who understand second year political science history and what the triumvirate means for the Roman Empire, it meant that people had to learn to work together. It meant that if you want to ensure you get the job done, you had to ensure that you know the power, the limitation of your power, and know how you are prepared to share that power. And I believe that is the challenge. And quite frankly, that's the challenge that the People's National Congress face. And you and I spoke about this the last time I was on your show, with former President Granger holding part of that power. We see the opposition leading Mr. Harman holding part of that power. And we see Mr. Aubrey Norton holding part of that power. And what you have is a basic a Julius Caesar, Pompey, and a Crassus in what's happening. And I think that they have to know to figure that out. But I've always said that this particular issue doesn't deserve the sort of public attention it has received for the past couple of weeks. We saw that so far it's gotten us nowhere. And I believe that level-headedness should play the point where we know who the real enemy is and how do we work together to defeat that enemy.
Good points. Good points, Mr. Sharma Solomon. Good evening to all of you who are tuned in. Michael Pereira, all the way from Berbice. Good evening to you. I believe that's where you are. Aliyah and others, welcome. Oren Baker. That seemed to be, a very, very dark tunnel, this unity that they're talking about, because there are lots and lots of cussing out, cussing down, looking at each other as suspects and pulling down of individuals. The talk name kind of politics. I don't know. I honestly am tired of that, mind you. But the coalition and by extension the PNC, they support base. They need to do better if they are going to confront the PPPC and get rid of the PPPC. Ernest Elliott, good evening to you, sir. Young Duncan, Onyx Duncan, a real fighter, Duncan. From BV. As a young man, what exactly are you looking for? Because I've heard that people have basically lost hope under this installed PPP regime. But you explain to our listeners from a young man's standpoint, and when you speak, I am almost certain that you speak on behalf of most young people in Guyana. What sort of future do you see for the next year or next 2 years under this installed PPP regime?
Well, I'm going to say this, Mark. I'm going to just date back a little before I answer your question. 2020, we would have went through a great lot with the elections and everything else. And when we thought it was finished there, it was not. Under this installed government, PPPC, 2021 was worse, given the fact that we had to relook at the Natural Resource Fund bill. We implemented a local content bill, and the Natural Resource Fund bill, to tell you the least, Mark, it's something that shaped our country, shaped Guyana, an oil-rich country. And this shaping is not a good shaping, Mark. It is devastating. This is where the PPPC will go into that oil account and use that money, and it would not benefit normal persons like myself, youths of this country. It will not benefit the older folks, but it will just benefit themselves. And like we've been calling them the installed PPC government. They're doing things that installed people are do, and that's the name. They're doing things exactly what installed people do. We've seen this happen regionally, locally. We've seen this happen at the Mayor and City Council, Georgetown there, by the town clerk. And these are the things that they want to keep happening. And you ask the question, what am I expecting from this government? It's not what I'm expecting from this government. It's what I'm expecting from politicians in a whole. Because politicians, like everyone know, and I saw Nothing to Laugh About made a skit about it, thieves and robbers, they continue to thieve the money. When are we going to do away with that type of politics? When are we going to do away with that type of politics in this country, Mark? This is something politics is something that everyone that is in it should be honest about it, because this is something that shapes the country. This is something that benefits all and not benefit one person. So my hope is that in 2022, seeing that we've been through a lot, we had the elections, then came coronavirus, and this 2021 that left us with a new natural resource fund bill that's devastating. It's more devastating than a plague, I should say, right? Because that is what shapes. That's what is going to shape our country for the next 10 years, for the next 100 years.
Let me intervene here.
Yes, Mark.
We all understand what the PPP is about. No good, hustling, thieving, handouts. Because the people, once they get a handout from the regime, taxpayers' money, the next month they wait for another handout. And that is where the corruption is. And we cannot have a country as rich as ours for people just sit down and wait for the next handout. It just cannot. Let's get back to Mr. Solomon. But before we do, though, how do you think the PNCR and the coalition can do better in terms of reaching out to their support base? What can they do?
Mark,
I'm asking Mr. Duncan, then I'll get back to you, Mr. Sharp.
Sorry for that.
That's okay, sir. That's okay. Onyx.
Well, I'm going to speak to the opposition, because the PNC makes up the opposition and a great part of the opposition. There's this talk about grassroots and grassroots. I don't think it's that's what the people want to hear at all. Like, there's more to it. There's more than grassroots politics and meeting out to the people, ensuring and putting faith in the people. Because if I'm to run a political party, I'm going on to the campaign, bringing faith back, because this is what people want. This is what I want. I want to hear that tomorrow, this is what we're going to do. This is what we're going to do. There's a bill that's going to be read in Parliament that the government is trying to pass because of their one-seat majority. We are going out there in our numbers, because we've seen what the PPC can do when they're ready to protest. We want to hear that. We don't want to hear 1 hour before, oh, meet us at Parliament, we're protesting. We don't want to hear that. We want you to come into the villages, go into the different communities, go into the shops and say, hey, we are moving at 10 a.m. Let us do this. Let us throw this hurdle aside and make our statement. Boots on the ground, yes, but we're not making a statement. You're sending a flyer on social media. That's not going to do it all. Go into the villages. Go into the villages. That's the grassroots we're talking about. Let the people know that tomorrow at 10 a.m. we go in and fight this bill. No bill is going to pass. No minister is going to pass into Parliament. That is what needed to be done on that day. But I didn't see that. You know, I would have made a promise that I would have been out there, but due to work, I couldn't. But that is what the politicians need to do. That is what the opposition needs to do. You understand, Mark?
You know, and then it goes back to say that, and I've been in the protest line for many, many years, and Guyanese do not like to come out. They like to talk. A lot of them talk on social media. A lot of them sit down and want other people to bell the cat, right? I've belled a lot of cats in the streets, protesting and so forth. And so I understand. You just said that you would have been out there, but you had to work. Scores of other people who say the same, but I had to work, I couldn't be there. But I understand your position, Mr. Duncan. Let's go to Mr. Sharma Solomon. We want a better Guyana. You are playing a major role in the PNC. I hope you do get to play a bigger role. I'm not certain whether it is true, and I don't like to spread rumor and propaganda on this show. This is not a show for that at all, right? We deal with serious matters here. But I'm hearing a little bird singing that you may be the next General Secretary of the People's National Congress Reform. Is that accurate? Were you contacted, or that's party matter to discuss privately?
Mark, two things. I think you touched the last one quite rightly. I think that's a party matter of which I'm certain the leader and the central exec will make such a decision. I was contacted by the leader of the party on the Sunday after the election. He and I had a conversation. It mostly centered around how do we ensure that our groups, our members are better organized, our structures are fixed. And I think that is where we left it. We are to meet once I'm back in Guyana. So I don't know what besides that is within store. I know my commitment to the party has always remained and will remain the same, which is there's work to be done and we must be prepared to put our boots on the ground and get the work done. I have given that commitment. I've given that commitment publicly, and I will continue to do so. But however, Mark, I think Onyx made a very valid point about getting back into the communities. And this was one of the things when we campaigned in the Congress. I made it quite clear that, we did not arrive at confronting the People's Progressive Party by chance. It was a lot of work. It was getting into communities. It was ensuring we had over 250 community meetings in less than maybe 2 years. We had that amount of meetings. We were every day meeting people, greeting people. But what you do when you are engaged with people like that, Mark, it is that you're actually bringing about the sort of articulation on issues that allow them to be shaped around the issues affecting people. So take, for example, Onyx mentioned, and many persons would mention that they had to go to work. When you give people something that fashions in an ideological way as to why they should be prepared to struggle. And you know why I always say this in many of the conversations that I'm in. You know why many people don't want to struggle, Mark? Because with struggles come sacrifices. And we must convince people why they should and what sort of sacrifices they'll have to make. And until you could craft for people what sort of sacrifices they're going to be making, how is this going to shape your lives? Then is when you will find people coming from in their communities, leaving their jobs, leaving their children, leaving their pots on the stove to understand why it is they have to go out and protest, why they have to stand up in resistance, why they have to speak out against certain autocratic behavior. But unless you can't do that, you can't stand behind your phone, send a text message, and people will come out. They wouldn't. And more work needs to be done. And I believe that is where the difficulty lies, because now for more work to be done, you have to get people to do that work. And how do you get people to do that work? And it goes right back to the issues affecting that work from being done, which is you have to put forward a very united front in ensuring that people understand that they're all involved. We have a very collective approach. we understand what we are up against and how we challenge that which we're up against, the sort of tactics we have to employ, whether those include going to the courts, whether those include being extra parliamentary on the streets, whether that includes how do we behave in parliament, how do we behave in our towns, our municipalities and our RDCs. It must be a very coordinated arrangement that allows people to understand that on every front, on every level, there is a combat arrangement on which you can approach the issues to ensure people get the sort of confidence that at the end of the actions being taken, we will likely see the sort of results that we promise and that we intend to have. Until you can do that, Mark, it will become difficult for you to encourage people to come out, for you to encourage people to make the sort of sacrifices to ensure that they're prepared to struggle for any cause. So I believe that becomes a very crucial issue. How do we ensure people understand in a very fundamental and ideological way why they're doing the things and what they should be doing to ensure they work to bring about the sort of change they want to? So I believe that this is where the party and the challenge within not only the party, but the general opposition, the coalition lies. How do they get their supporters? How do they get their support base to become rejuvenated? And one would expect, because quite frankly, I would have expected that after such a high intensity Congress, people with the sort of political activism would have been so energized and engaging that, we would have had this sort of movement and momentum with movement that people were prepared to do the sort of things necessary to bring about the attention to the issues affecting them, especially with the National Natural Resource Fund and that bill. And I know it's being challenged. I really like that the opposition is taking this fight at every level to ensure that they ask the Speaker to justify by the votes who were the members of Parliament that voted on this bill. Can he show the proof of those who said yea or nay? That sort of things will now become very important for us to know if indeed the president assented to something illegal that wasn't given the sort of legislative concurrence. So I believe those sort of things, not only that they're in the public domain, you have to now take them down into your communities. You have to now speak to your membership. You have to now speak to the people who are in the grassroots that supported you and let them understand what it is they're fighting for. If you can't do that, Mark, you're a very long way from achieving the sort of success that you do.
Well said.
Mark, before you move on, I just want to interject and say,
Sure.
the day or the night before when I knew that bill was going to be read in Parliament, I'm going to put persons on the spot here. I messaged someone that is strongly affiliated with the opposition leader, and I asked, are we going to protest tomorrow? On a normal basis, that person would reply to me. That person never replied to me. So it shows to me the level of politicians that we have in this country. If we are not going to protest, just say no. If we're going to protest, say yes. And these are the things that bothers me on a daily basis, right? Because this is something that we need to look at, pay keen attention to, put our 100% into it. And if I ask you, and you're part of a political party, and you're closely affiliated with the opposition leader, are we going to protest tomorrow? And there was no response.
You know what? I think, Onyx, I agree with Sharma that they need to have a real direction as to where they're heading. And without unity, they will be scattered. Their support base will be saying some of the things and fighting down each other. I notice everybody's down Harman's. Some folks are down Harman's throat. Harman is a PPP. Since when Harman is a PPP? Y'all didn't know that in 2015?
When he won the election.
Y'all didn't know that for 5 years. Y'all didn't know that, but suddenly y'all know that Harman is a PPP. All because you may have disagreement with him. But if the fight continues like this, there's going to be no unity, folks. folks. I'm telling
Right.
you guys as it is there's not going to be any unity at all. Now, people are entitled to their opinions, right? Don't get me wrong. But since when Harman is a PPP? I don't know. Look, I have said this before that, and I'm adding Sharma Solomon, young, vibrant, and he's very energetic. He's grassroots, real grassroots. And grassroots politics is not knock a beer here or knock a beer there or knock little high wine there or whatever or whatever.
Talk the talk and
Grassroots
walk the
politics
walk.
is going into the communities and empowering people
Mhm.
within those communities. That is why I'd like to add Sharma Solomon to the list. Two persons I have, Ganesh and Sharma Solomon, either of the two. But I sense that Sharma will tip him for General Secretary
Second that.
of the People's
Second that,
Congress.
Mark.
It is needed. It is needed. So if folks within the PNC are watching and they can make this happen as quickly as possible, we need, or well, the party needs a proper general secretary. And who is to sit there? Two folks, either Sharma or Ganesh. But I think Sharma has an edge over Ganesh. Now let me ask you, Mr. Duncan, because you're the youngest of the three here. I'm the second young. I'm younger. Sharma is the eldest of us all here. What is your take when you sit as a young person and you saw what happened in Parliament, what the Speaker of the National Assembly, Mansour Nadir, did in terms of insulting democracy, insulting the people of Guyana, and those who sit there masquerading as members of the ruling party MPs and as though they're angels. And then when you saw the opposition MPs and their whistles and all these things, is that what you want as a young man to see our parliamentarians? And mind you, I support what the opposition parliamentarians did. If I was sitting there as a parliamentarian, maybe it probably would not have been so nice. And I'm being honest. The PPP, they don't like church service. They just don't like church service. They like other forms of actions, and that's when they listen. But as a young man, how does that make you feel, sir?
Well, Mark, compared to Priya, well, when she was in Parliament, when she bawled out rape, compare that to what happened in December, it was nothing compared. That was more brawling, and they went on more than this opposition would have behaved. And I mean, if you have to stand up for democracy in that way, in the highest house in the land, then why not? And I stand with the opposition for what they did. It is troubling though. It is very troubling that, and we all know that the Speaker of the House would have went in there with a clear directive. I don't know from who, but he would have went in there with a clear directive. Whatever happens, you are to pass this bill. You are to continue with business as usual. This is the PPP. Business as usual. Whatever happens, we don't care who says what is done, business as usual. You carry on this service as it's supposed to be. And we all know Mansour Nadir is very much affiliated with the PPPC. He would have campaigned with the PPPC. And we know these things.
Oh yeah, he's dead PPP, so to speak. There's no democracy, and so in Parliament, and so whatever Mansour talks about whenever he calls a press conference, it's just all about propaganda. That is what it's about. But let us get Mr. Sharma Solomon's take. And sometimes people ask, I sometimes don't see eye to eye with young Sharma Solomon, but I'd like to be objective, though, to think that we needed fighters like Sharma Solomon in Parliament. Parliament has quite a lot in the opposition side of people who are afraid to go out and confront issues and to be proactive and so forth and so on. Maybe the time has come for some changes in Parliament as well. But I am in no position to make those changes. The man who controls that is my friend, still my friend, David Arthur Granger. He has made some mistakes. I acknowledge that, but he's still my friend. I'm not going to throw him under the bus like a lot of you who throwing him under the bus. Some of you don't have any justifiable reason for doing so. But sorry about that. In the studio. Thanks, Lemon, for fixing that. But President David Arthur Granger will be hosting his show right here on 107.1. Sorry about that. Guyana, you know how it is. And so, President, Guyana. Yeah, I'm blaming Guyana on X, right? I'm blaming Guyana. President David Arthur Granger will be hosting his show right here on 107.1 FM every Friday from 11 to 11:30 in the morning. 11 to 11:30 in the morning, right here on 107.1 FM. And if other folks in the opposition, not those folks, who feel as though that, maybe Ben Sharp is anti them or whatever, but if Mr. Harman wants to have a program, call it Talking with the Opposition Leader, he's welcome to join us here on 107 as well. And the same with the leader of the People's National Congress, Mr. Aubrey Norton. And until these three gentlemen sit down, like grown men, sit down in order to iron out what Mr. Sharma talked about, this triangular leadership affair, then it will be the best thing for their support base. It will be the best thing for the party. It will be the best thing for the country, because you will have real opposition, three men, three leaders going in the same direction. But to cuss out on Facebook every day, cuss. And some folks feel that they're the best cuss words in the world. Cussing wouldn't get you guys anywhere. Mr. Sharma Solomon, as we're looking at the time, what do you want to talk about? We have a few more minutes. What's going through your mind for this 2022, sir?
Well, just to pick up where you just left off, Mark, the matter of the triumvirate is not something to overlook. And in essence, what we have within the structures you highlighted just now, it is an informal triumvirate. Nobody have made any formal understanding of how they are going to proceed. So informally, we are to draw from this that there are three persons who hold power within the context of what now it is now the PNC and by extension the opposition. And like you said, this matter for me, and I mentioned this on the last show, not only for ourselves, but even for the gentlemen. And I want to commend Comrade Norton for taking the time to say that this matter should be placed within the context of the central executive and to be given the sort of guidance that it should be given. So I believe that is where the matter should be. However, it should not be overlooked about the significance of the individuals that hold the respective positions of power. And I think until we can appreciate that, then we'll know exactly how we'll proceed and how strong we will be able to take effective action or actions, in fact, against those who are perpetrating aggressions against the state, which is the People's Progressive Party. So I would like to say that, we have to take the opportunity that is provided to us now, which is the PPP is doing a lot of self-damage. They're making themselves more unpopular, not only across Guyana, not only within the ranks of the opposition, but even in their own internal structures. And we see that even with persons who supported the People's Progressive Party. I see many different agencies and groups are now voicing their opinions and expressing their concerns. And this is the opportunity. This is what we have to use to our advantage. This is what we have to ensure that we now bring those dissenting voices on board and build a broader coalition that we can challenge the People's Progressive Party. until we can do that, and until we are prepared to internally heal, and I made this point earlier, Mark, the platform that people campaign on was mostly on consolidating power. Unity was not the focus of this particular campaign for some of the people who campaign. And I think now that you're seeing that the Congress is finished, consolidating of power becomes a struggle, it becomes an issue, and that which underline the issue that we should move forward on, which is a platform of a united front, has now become the thing that is becoming the issue to undermine moving forward in that very aggressive and forceful way that we should. So I would take this time to encourage everyone to look at the formula that we had put forward earlier. Look at that 180 days approach that we had been encouraged, of which the first would have been taking the time to move forward with unity. The second is how do we build our movement from the grassroots to ensure that power is truly given to our groups, ensure that they have their structures. You know, you can't build on a shaky foundation. Those groups have to be functioning. Those groups have to be structured. Those groups have to be well managed and maintained. You can't have groups without chairmen and secretaries, and then tomorrow when you call upon them, you expect them to function knowing that they had no chairmen or secretaries. They're not going to be effective. So this becomes your second thing. You have to fix those groups. You have to ensure that those groups are functional. We can't lie to ourselves and behave as though groups are there and groups are not. Because when we do stretch back into that which we have to rely on the most to take the sort of actions that we need, they'll not be there to give us the sort of support that we need. And I think that is becoming a very evident factor in how do we get the actions that we deserve. So moving ahead, Mark, I would like to encourage those two very principled initiatives, to take the unity initiative and then to ensure that we build the structures of our party back, our membership, our groups, to ensure that they're effective and they have the sort of organizational structures that when we look back into them, we can ensure that we get the sort of support that will be able to confront any RT enemy that challenges us.
Well said, Mr. General Secretary. Calling that into being. Yes, but you know, a lot of people seem to think that all of the problems lie in the feet of David Arthur Granger. I know a lot of people, and I'm seeing some of them. Some of them are back in positions, and some of them behind the scene of the PNCR, who, when they were in part of the coalition government, have themselves made a heck of a lot of mistakes and, contributed. In law, there's something that's called contributory negligence. And so people who have blundered big time themselves, who have ignored their responsibilities, even during the course of elections, ignored things and so forth, are suddenly angry at David Arthur Granger. And the simple question I asked some of them, that you pointing fingers at David Granger, but when you guys were there, head of whatever it is, what have you done? What have you done? But I don't want to go that route, though. I'm a little under the weather. I just thought that I mentioned that yes, Mr. Granger has made mistakes. I think it is unfair to throw Mr. Granger under the bus and disrespect him, as we're seeing. I know people are upset that the elections went the way that it ought not to have gone. And a lot of people who suddenly become democratic, they themselves were there and asked the question, what have they done? During the course of elections, they had a lot of them didn't want to go out and campaign. They didn't want to go out. They didn't want to be seen campaigning, but suddenly they're the biggest supporters of the PNC. The other thing, quickly, before your closing remarks, I've noticed that quite a few people who are not members of the PNC, maybe like myself, they are more concerned about democratic processes and happenings in the PNC more than their political establishment. And I notice my good friend Dr. David Hines has me on tomorrow, and some other folks on his show. Hope I'm feeling better to go on that show. But when I'm on that show, I'll ask David Hines this question. David has a lot of energy about what is happening in the PNC. But I want to ask David Hines a simple question. And, he's my friend. He could take a little rubbing. That when are they going to fix the WPA? People want to hear Congress in the WPA. The WPA has had the same leaders for 30, 40 something years now. I'll ask him that question when I go on his show tomorrow evening. Your closing remarks, Mr. Onyx Duncan.
All right, Mark. Like Mr. Solomon has been saying, that PNC needs unity, but in all, we have a government that is going under the motto or the phrase "One Guyana," but we are not seeing one Guyana. What I want to say to the government of the day is that the elections is over, and it's good. It's time now to forget about what happened in 2020 and what the coalition did, and stop going back on the coalition trying to hold on to power and all of these things, and let us move forward and shape a better Guyana. Do things that would benefit Guyana and not continue to deteriorate our country or take us back 20, 40 years from now. So instead of you saying to us that we are a one Guyana country, or we are one country, show us that we are one country. Be inclusive. Let us all be inclusive in everything that you're doing, in everything that is being done, in every bill that is being passed in Parliament. Let us see the inclusivity, because inclusivity is not you going to Parliament and putting forward a bill and have it passed just like that. There's 217 thousand of persons that did not vote for you, but they are being represented in Parliament by the opposition, and the opposition needs a say in it. Other parties need a say in it. So inclusivity, unite. Let us unite as a country, although we may have political differences and things that are not on our agenda. Let us unite and bring together this country as a one Guyana. That's all I have to say.
All right. Earlier, I had a conversation with Lemon. Lemon is a smart guy, folks. He's not just a technical operator. He's a smart guy. He's busy at work. One of these days, you'll get to see Lemon. And Lemon said that what Irfan Ali is doing with this one Guyana thing, he's trying to dismantle this whole concept of one people, one nation, one destiny. Right? So
I had that thought too.
Be very careful with this so-called one Guyana thing. This so-called one Guyana thing. Onyx people just like you. They want to have you back. But let's have the closing remarks of Mr. Sharma Solomon, the man who could quite possibly become the next General Secretary of the People's National Congress Reform. Before your closing remarks, Sharma, I want to say that when you're settled down, I know you're spending the quality time with your beautiful daughters and your wife and your family. Remember that you have a spot right here on 107.1 FM with your show, whatever you want to name it. But we put you down sometime in the evening, nighttime show, big people show, right? Onyx is probably saying what happened to you.
I want to be invited.
Yeah, but you will be invited, but we'll let you know when.
Certainly.
Mr. Solomon, your closing remarks, please, sir.
Well, Mark, you seem more optimistic than I am, so I guess you're hearing more than I am. So
I'm an optimist.
I leave that to you. But let me say this. Just to pick up on the point that Annex mentioned, and before I close off, about One Guyana. And, you know, we talk about the Cooperative Republic of Guyana. And if you notice, the People's Progressive Party have always been trying to change that name to just Guyana, you know, but our original name and our official name, in fact, it is the Cooperative Republic of Guyana. And the context of cooperatism, and it's in a good book written by Pat Dial about the revolution to republic. And it shows where our cooperative spirit came in as a people, you know, whether it was the Afro-Guyanese who in the village movement worked together to build villages, whether it's our Indo brothers and sisters who came together and bought and purchased lands and developed those plantations, and whether it was our Portuguese and Chinese brothers and sisters who came together and purchased businesses and became merchants and went into trade and commerce. We as a people of Guyanese origin, that is our principal beginnings in a cooperative spirit. And we had our late president, Forbes Burnham, who took that entire desire of cooperativism and placed an economic context into how do we see the development of the economy from private to public to cooperatives in terms of the trisector economy. And that in itself represents an ideological fashioning of what one people, one nation, one destiny, and that whole spirit of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana come from. Now, when you speak of One Guyana, there's no context, there's no understanding, there's no meaning, there's no definition. It is just open language. There is no involvement for those stakeholders in the COVID relief effort. There is no stakeholdership in anything that is happening in Guyana. There is no respect for Article 13, which invites people to be part of the decision-making process. So that in itself, the concept of One Guyana is as fake as it is without any definition for people to rely on. So it has no meaning. It doesn't represent anything. And you see in the display of the People's Progressive Party, something that doesn't fundamentally stick to what Guyanese represent. So I just thought I should make that quite clear. It's an hollow understanding of what One Guyana should represent. It is just the PPP trying to behave as though they care for people, and we see in their actions something that doesn't represent anything of care and consideration. But before I go, Mark, I hold very optimistic, like yourself, for 2022, on the essence of where we can challenge the People's Progressive Party. I still believe that every effort we see being made by the People's Progressive Party is to call a snap election. Whether they are trying to rewrite the boundary lines, they're gerrymandering, whether they're doing work at GCOM, whether we see them taking certain action, we see petition 99 gaining momentum, and a disunited opposition, a disunited PNC is not good for the challenge that we're up against. And I hold the optimism that the PPP in 2020 did not perform the way they ought to be in government. And I believe it is because we fag off when it came to the issue of unity, that once we get back to that momentum, we are unstoppable as a coalition, we're unstoppable as a party, and as a people who want to see right by Guyana, we're unstoppable.
Mr. General Secretary, Sharma Solomon. There we go again, Sharma. But it is a position I'd like to see you sit in. If you get a call from the leader, Mr. Aubrey Compton Norton, to say that he wants you to serve as his General Secretary under the People's National Congress Reform, a position that Mr. Norton once held, what would be your response, sir?
Mark, I've given my commitment to the leader of the party that I'm prepared to give service to the party.
Prepared to give service to the party. Thank you so much, Mr. Sharma Solomon. Give my regards to your family. And on X, I noticed that you've been asking Priya Manik Chan, you've been saying that You see, I'm on everybody's post, so I know what
This is
people
our month to shine.
Yeah, yeah. How do you guys feel quickly that school has reopened? Good thing or bad thing? Onyx, 30 seconds.
I feel I have hope that it will go well. Like I said, this is our month to shine. And if it doesn't go well for this month, it will go very bad in the coming months after. So I feel well that school is open. Let's see because we don't know how long coronavirus is gonna be around. But once the systems are in place that can keep the children safe, that can keep the teachers safe, I'm good with that. But let's see what January does.
All right, Mr.
Reckless and dangerous, Mark. Reckless and dangerous. I mean, to open school full face-to-face learning, and the Minister of Health is now theorizing that we now may have the Omicron virus in our midst. It's reckless, dangerous. In Atlanta, in New York, I know in DeKalb County, many of the schools, in fact, I know schools that have been closed to face-to-face learning in DeKalb County in Atlanta because of the Omicron virus. Thousands and thousands of people vaccinated or not have been coming down with the Omicron virus. And to think that the minister is not certain what we have in Guyana, but he's only postulating whether we have it or not. It is dangerous, reckless, and it puts every Guyanese in danger. And I think people should take necessary actions against that.
They got one more.
Necessary actions. Thank you so much, Mr. Onyx Duncan, a fighter, a real fighter when he has his gloves on. As a young man, watch out for him in the political arena. Sharma Solomon, as always, thank you so much for your time. God bless you both. And to all of our listeners as well, thank you all so much. God bless you all. Hopefully, I'll see you tomorrow. I'm an optimist, so I believe that I will see you guys, all of you, tomorrow. But don't forget, tomorrow morning, starting at 9 o'clock Guyana time, the mid-morning show with Gabby and Selector Andre. Thank you so much, Sharma. Thank you so much, Onyx.
Thanks for having
me again. God bless each and every one of you. I'm sounding like somebody related to Onyx there, but thank you all so much. God bless you.
She put a pot on she hair and gone. Them a the first one out on the dam. Basket on she head, bucket in each hand. Hold up on she frock, I wanna she grandson. To the market, them a go. For the morning, the day is dawning. For cockacrow to give the villagers a warning. Rise and shine, the birds them a sing. All animal take turn as them join in the waking. Cockacrow, dagabag, donkey, bray, horse, and they even duck a quack. Cockacrow, dagabag, donkey, bray, horse, and they even duck a quack. Come and hear this sweet story that tell the people about life in the country. All day a back down, me now a come home. The naga jackass yard for fetch the load. Cockle shy hand, bag over shoulder, running by his side, a Rexy and Rover. From the farm, them a come. Sun a go down, but up the